Russell T Davies said that this episode might be the best thing he's ever written. I can't remember if he was talking specifically about written for Doctor Who or written in general, but that's quite a bold claim either way. So, will it live up to last week's? I loved Boom last week. Will it surpass Boom in terms of its quality? Will it be better than Russell T Davies' previous best written episode of Doctor Who, in my opinion, Turn Left? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about.
Forget I said anything.
No, tell me what happened.
No. What is this?
Hi, welcome to Culture Filter. I am the fill-in filter, and this is where we talk about all the geeky pop culture here on this channel, including Doctor Who. And yes, new episode, very exciting episode, because of the kind of way it had been talked about specifically by Russell beforehand. Like I said, he had claimed that it was the best thing he had written. So, does it live up to that? Let's find out, I guess. There will be spoilers in this review, so if you don't want spoilers, go away, watch the episode, come back later. This was an incredibly creepy episode from the get-go. As soon as they discovered that weird circle thing with the cotton and the skulls and the notes, there was an air of creepiness that then just intensified throughout this episode and reached a peak at old Ruby in her hospital bed and the flickering lights at the end there. The tone of this episode is one of the highlights, I think. They managed to keep the tone going. Has different sections, it has lulls and then it ramps up again, which is good, because I think if you had the intensity just constantly growing all the way through, it would be too much. But they build it up, they let it down a little bit, they build it up, they let it down a little bit, and that kind of works. This is, of course, a Dr. Light episode, our first one in many years, and I think Millie Gibson has proven with this episode that she can absolutely hold her own here. She is captivating and brilliant through the heartfelt dramatic moments, through the creepy moments. She can show scared, she can show trauma, she can show cunning and, solving the problems and working it out. She's got a whole range here and she comes across so well. She's absolutely, for me, I've liked her from the beginning. I've liked her as a character from the beginning and the way that Millie plays the part from the beginning. But this episode highlights that she's a really good actor, and I will be sad to see her go, because, I think she's going to end up being one of the top 10 companions of all time at some point, I think. There's almost two parts to this episode. There's the Welsh part, and then there's the back home living her life part. And the Welsh part really added to that creepiness really quickly and really effectively. From when we first saw the woman standing on the hill in the distance, to then encountering, of course, Susan Twist in another role as the hiker. And I like the fact that, because last time they encountered her, there was quite a bit of face-on time. They, spent a lot of time looking at her face for the first time when she was the ambulance. So it's good to see that they're acknowledging that. And Ruby's like, don't I know you? So it's good that they're acknowledging that. She dismisses it because she's like, well, no, that was an AI, and you must just look very similar. I suspect next time she sees her, it'll be even more prominent and be like, okay, this is getting weird now. This is not just a coincidence that two people look extremely similar in different time periods, and one of them was an AI. It's now what is going on, I suspect, next time. But we'll see when she next turns up and if they notice her. But then, soon as Susan Twist's character goes up to the woman, the creepy woman on the hill, and talks to her, and then glances back at Ruby, screams and runs away, that sent chills down me. I did literally have goosebumps. And that did not stop throughout the episode. There were several points in this episode where I got literal goosebumps on my arms. I like what they did with, making us doubt what time she's in, because when she says, can I pay on my phone, first of all, the bartender looks at her like she's a bit strange, and like, what do you mean pay on your phone? And obviously that makes us think, oh god, are they in the 1980s or something? Is this in the past? And they don't have this technology yet, but it's them just kind of messing with her a little bit as this stranger that has come in, all the locals slightly messing with her, which will play into a few minutes later because we get this brilliant scene of this building tension about this story of Mad Jack when they hear that she's disturbed this cotton pentagrammy thing that's been on the when the doctor disturbed it anyway, and she read the notes, and they build up this story of Mad Jack and how it was terrible that she disturbed it and read the notes, and the way it's framed, the way it is shot and everything. It was the music, Murray Gold's music in the background, all contributed to that being a really quite scary scene. Lots of Dutch angles on the characters and things, tilted angles, and their sort of faces very close up and manner, sort of like slightly crazy looking. The actors did a really good job there. And again, it was a moment where I got really big goosebumps, and I was like, oh, this is quite freaky. And then they completely break that tension deliberately and effectively, and worked really well by just bursting into laughter, and they were just winding her up again. I thought that worked really well. And that's kind of the end of that section, that kind of Welsh section of it, which was a really effective section for building up this kind of very creepy vibe, this horror vibe almost, and it was worked really well. Then we go to sort of back to modern day life, and we see her life. Oh, on the train back, I also found really creepy the way they did lots of different ways of showing the woman in the distance. She's on the train looking out the window, and they go past like a street, and she's just in the street. And that worked really well as well. And a slightly different way of showing it. And they kept on creating these new ways of showing this woman that sort of almost jump scared us every time. Now, when she gets home, she obviously tells her mum, Carla, about this, and her mum wants to do something about it, so they plot a plan. Thinks obviously that her mum, won't run away, and she can hear what the woman says. So she takes the phone up, and her mum looks at her and runs away. And just like the pain in Ruby's eyes in that moment, you could feel that. Again, stellar acting from Millie Gibson there, because that was absolutely fantastic. And I really felt that was quite heartbreaking that her mum ran away. And then that scene where she's at the door, her mum has changed the locks, and she's on the phone, finally on the phone to her mum, and her mum is saying, "You're not my daughter. Never contact me again." And that was heartbreaking. Then we get a year time jump, which at first I was like, oh, okay, does this mean we're going to get, like, we got a 6-month time jump already between episodes earlier on in the season. Are we going to have another year-long time jump? Later on, that was kind of disproved. Obviously, by the end of the episode, we know it's not true, but I kind of, once they jumped another 20-odd years, I kind of figured that, okay, well, they're not. This is all going to be undone somehow by the end. That's obvious. But at this point, I was still wondering. And she meets up with Kate Stewart of UNIT, and Kate has a UNIT SWAT team descend on the woman, and they all turn and look and Ruby and run away. And because Kate has the earpiece in and can hear what's going on, she gets whatever the woman says as well, and she turns and walks away from Ruby as well, abandoning her. It's nice to see UNIT. That's good. It would make sense that, they check in on the Doctor's old companions, and so that does make sense that they would be involved here, and I like the very limited way they were involved. So then we see Ruby getting older. She gets the longer hair, she gets the glasses, you're clearly trying to age her up a bit, and we eventually find out, she gets through we see it going on several dates, having relationships and stuff, and them ending, and then we get to 2046, I think it was, and there's an election on, and one of the candidates for this new party, the Albion Party, is on the television. Roger something. Now, this name immediately pricks up her ears, because it is something that in the opening scene, the Doctor had accidentally let slip, that there was a terrible Welsh politician who almost caused nuclear apocalypse or something like that, who became Prime Minister. When he was talking about being in Wales, he was like, oh, yeah, the Welsh are lovely, apart from that one guy. And then realises that, he's talking about somebody from Ruby's future, so he should probably not give the spoilers away. But she recognises the name. She also clocks that he mentions that he had the nickname as a child, Mad Jack. So she ties that back to the Mad Jack story from the notes that she found, and also the people in the pub telling that story, and thinks that it's now her job to save the world. Then we're into this whole political angle of the story. And I like what they did with the kind of like social commentary angles. They were framing this guy as a very populist politician who was basically driving division and being very nationalist. They also framed him as not a particularly nice person, charming on the surface, but then underneath they scattered some things in which show you that actually he's not that nice a person. For instance, how when Ruby, because she wants to infiltrate the campaign in order to get close to him to find out what's going on and potentially stop him, what she does is she kind of like integrates herself into the campaign, and as part of that he eventually approaches her and chats to her. But then there's another internee type person there as well who looks much more meek and shy and quiet, whereas Ruby, I think, straight away comes across as very domineering. Already within the campaign you've got and her working in the campaign, you've got her being treated in a very sort of subservient, almost secretarial role, you know, holding coats, getting coffee, that kind of thing. And there's a comment that somebody makes. Was it Roger? Or was it somebody else? There was some kind of sexist comment that I clocked from somebody in the campaign, from one of the men in the campaign, that made it sound like this was a political party where effectively it was run all by men, and the women were there just to do the fetch the coffee, carry the coats, that kind of thing. Then he very much sidelines from Ruby, who I think comes across there as, strong, confident, and I think he clocks that, but he notices the other intern across the hall and in the TV studio they're in, and makes a beeline for her because she looks much more quiet, reserved, and I think because later on they refer to him as that character refers to him as being a monster. I think they're implying there's some kind of abuse going on there. They don't really delve into it. It's very surface level. It's kind of like very subtext, and it's implied rather than explicitly stated, which in a way is a good thing, but I don't know if they focused on it. I mean, it could have been its own... In a longer episode, it could have been its own thing. In fact, I think this whole section could have been... In a longer episode, they could have expanded on it quite a lot. But in the sense, it was there in the end as a kind of decoy. It was there as a red herring almost, because Ruby thinks that this is something to do with whatever curse has happened that's made the Doctor disappear and this woman follow her. But interestingly, it turns out that that's not the case in the end. This isn't Mad Jack that's been released from the circle, or at least we don't think it is by the end. He's just an ordinary scummy politician. But he is a ultra-nationalist one, and he is planning on breaking away from NATO, and he is planning on getting his own arsenal of nuclear weapons, and that would probably lead to the disaster that the Doctor alluded to at the start. So, even though Ruby thinks she's stopping him because he's something to do with the curse, and that's why he's going to end the world, she still needs to stop him. Like, this is still a bad person doing potentially bad things, and is going to cause, Armageddon with his nuclear weapons. So she decides at that point to use the woman, and I think that was a really smart plan, and it worked really well. When she was backing up with the camera to get to 73 yards and made sure that they were next to each other, I was like, what's she doing? And then it clocked about halfway while she was doing the walking, and the woman talked to him. He runs away from everything, and resigns as PM, and the world is saved. All good. And then I was like, well, is that the end of the story? But no, it's not. Then we see her continue to age, and we get, several bits in her life. She revisits the TARDIS. The woman is always still there, and eventually she's on her deathbed in a hospital in another 40 years later. And then we get this really creepy bit where the lights flicker on, and this woman is there. You don't see her face. She gets closer and closer, and then suddenly we're from her perspective when she was watching Ruby on the cliff. And turns out it was Ruby all along. Now, I kind of like that. I like the circular nature of that. I think that works quite well as a wrapping up of that. Oh, Rowan wants to come and join me, so we'll get the 4-year-old's opinion on the episode as well. So I think there were some small issues with the ending. I like the circular nature of it. I don't mind that the political plot was a sort of red herring in a way. I think it gave some interesting stuff to do, and I wonder if there might be more to that coming later, possibly. We never found out why people ran away, and I don't just mean what was said that made them run away, but more, if that is Ruby, why did she want people to run away? Was it because so that her past self would know what people did when they spoke to her and eventually could use it against Roger? I don't think that was clear enough. That's a possibility, but I don't think it was clear enough. Then there's the case of, like, if we've gone back at the end and she stops, actually changes history this time, and the Doctor doesn't step on the circle, does that mean that Roger still comes to power and this time Ruby isn't there to stop him? So is that still going to happen? And is that therefore going to play into something later on in the season, in which case, fine, it doesn't matter that they didn't deal with it here. Or is it just this loose end, which I feel a bit uneasy about? Yeah, what did you like that episode of Doctor Who? With the one with the Ruby getting older, and what did you like? Did you find it scary? Yeah? What was scary about it? Was the old woman scary?
I liked the bit when Ruby got old.
You liked the bit where Ruby got old?
Yeah.
Yeah? Cool. Did you miss the Doctor?
Yeah.
Because he wasn't there much, was he? I think the whole politician bit I liked it, but it did feel like it could have been longer, and it felt a little bit rushed in parts. But overall, I really like this episode, and I think it is. I wouldn't say that it's as it doesn't beat Turn Left in terms of Russell T Davies' writing. It definitely doesn't beat his stuff outside of Doctor Who, like Years and Years and It's a Sin. But in terms of quality of writing, I think it's up there. It's up there with the best of the stuff he's written for Doctor Who. It's not quite there. And I think the ending and the ambiguity around the ending, and I get that sometimes leaving a bit of ambiguity is an interesting thing to do, but I don't think I don't know, there was too many questions and ambiguity at the end here, so it's not quite up there. As for whether or not it beats Boom, I need to rewatch Boom. I'm gonna leave this one unsure at the moment. They're of about the same quality. Boom wasn't without its flaws, and neither was this episode, but they are both stellar episodes, and I suspect they will both be either number 1 or 2 on my ranking when I do a ranking at the end of this season. What did you think of this episode? Did you like it? What do you think of the ending? Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll be back for another Doctor Who review next week. Might be slightly later next week, might be on the Sunday, because I'm working away on Friday night and Saturday. So thank you very much, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.